The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to today's CIECAst. This is Fred Iantorno, Executive Director of CIECA. Today we have a committee report from the newly formed Scheduling Committee. The scope of the committee's work includes appointments for independent appraisal services, repairers, tow facilities, car rental agencies, fleet companies, salvors, and vehicle owners in expediting the scheduling of services. Today, Charlie Court, CIECA's project coordinator, will present. I want to thank all of you for spending your time with us and to Charlie for sharing his insight and expertise with all of us. I'll now turn this over to our presenter, Charlie Court.
Thank you, Fred. Scheduling Committee started last November with the objective of saying, let's get something on the calendar. And the first task we had was to pull a number of different committees together to participate to make sure we develop one scheduling message that satisfies everybody's need. Okay, next. First of all, we came up with a mission, and the first of all is to automate the scheduling activities, to schedule everything around it, what's all involved, what's the benefit to all the parties, to build the awareness of the parties' availability and capacity. One of the things we talked about, we said we need to schedule an appointment. If you want to schedule something for glass repair, it's a lot different than if you want to rent a car. That might take weeks, and a glass repair will take 30 minutes. So we want to have something about the duration and the capacity then from the service provider. So when the customer calls in, he says, here's what I'm going to need. They have an idea of here's my capacity that I can make these appointments available to you. And the other one was to incorporate electronic communications to the consumer. This is the first time we've really extended our workflow to reach the consumer, the mobile device out there. So we've got a couple things going on that we'll finish with. Go ahead. Next, Fred. The objective is when we said, here's our objectives. We want to determine the benefits of all industry segments. We want to make sure in doing that, it sounds like that's pretty easy, but we want to really understanding of what each industry segment needs as far as its scheduling requirements. And so I'll show you a little bit about what we did there. We want to provide industry definitions, including questions and answers, and then the process flows. Here's what we're talking about exactly. So if you didn't understand the definitions, here's the process flow where the message actually flows to and from in the sequence of that. So that's what we did with the industry definitions and process flows. So that was a large chunk of work before we ever even started the messaging. Then developed the standard data communication formats, what's really needed. Currently Google has a calendar app, but we wanted to go beyond that because Google Apps, for example, don't really have capacity to Google Calendar, I'm sorry. So we wanted to go beyond that and really understand about what we need from a CIECA standpoint to really satisfy the scheduling objectives. And then to create a standard for a request of a business partner's capacity to schedule an inspection or an appointment for a service to be completed. We realized we had something different when we did the glass one, is instead of just doing an appointment, they wanted to do an inspection to make sure the glass really needed to be replaced or fixed. So that's the difference between an inspection and an appointment. Go on, next slide, please. I want to improve the service to the business partners and to the customers. Again, this is the first time we've really reached out and touched the customer. So we thought that was an important part of our business. And we wanted to invite the non-CIECA organizations and companies to join us in the development. OTA, the Open Travel Alliance, really is a cross-section of hotels, airlines, and car rental agencies. And we want to make sure that what we do is at least to increase their awareness. So we've had people within organizations that belong to both talking to both organizations to make sure they're in sync. Why don't you go to the next one, Fred? The scheduling impacted parties, we want to say who's all impacted to make sure we have touched everybody we needed to. So what we want to do, here's the insurance companies we knew were out there, glass repair companies, that includes replacement, the estimators, the adjusters, repair facilities, and rental car companies. Those were the big hits right at the top. All of them had different needs out there, and all of them had different ways which really to say what's my impacted parties. Car rental companies, for example, wanted to know the latitude and longitude of exactly where you'd like to have this, or an intersection. So their address capabilities was quite different than we normally think of an address. Would you go to the next one, Fred? The tow consolidators, Kind of a new entry into the CIECA world was the towing consolidators that say, here, we'd really like to have you go out there and do an appointment for a pickup. When I first was involved in saying exactly how the tow consolidators work, it's not the party that actually picks it up from the middle of the intersection when there was an accident. That the insurance, that's before the insurance company even gets involved. It's when that gets towed to an impound facility or gets towed to a repair facility, and then you need to do what they call a secondary tow. So that's the focus of really the towing consolidators. It was important to understand that line of business. The vehicle owners and the self-insured companies. Sometimes we say vehicle owners, and all we think of is consumers versus the fleet companies, etc., that sit out there. So we brought their needs in as well. So we can identify an entity, and that entity can be a fleet company. The salvage vendors and salvors, we do have a salvage committee, but really we didn't do any scheduling there for the towing, for example, messages there. Salvage buyers are important to get them involved and what they need to do to schedule pickups, etc. Information providers, they've frequently been the hub for all the communication when it goes to the repair facility, so we want to make sure they were involved. And the other was call centers, those third-party entities that extend beyond an organization but are really key to the organization's operation. Why don't you go to the next one, Fred? Scheduling benefits, the first couple, you know right off the top, reduces manual data entry. We really wanted to make sure that at the shop level, they had at one time, okay, I have to have 3 screens for the 3 different information providers. I have to do multiple people when I want to do updates to, if I put out here's where your car repair is in the process. There's multiple different systems out there. So we really wanted to reduce the manual entry by just having, and actually then the number of screens they need to look at. So that was really a big hit. Reduces the phone calls. We wanted to make sure that everything can be done electronically on the system as opposed to phone calls back and forth. Reduction of processing errors. I'd be able to see it and key it in and send it to you so you actually get a data as opposed to something you can enter onto the screen. No transposing of numbers. Automate the scheduling process and facilitate document exchange and processing. When things have to be exchanged, we want to make sure you're able to send a document across, not necessarily to inquire about the appointment, but when it actually comes to scheduling that appointment, there's frequently additional paperwork that needs to be involved in exchange. So we want to make sure that we're able to provide that service as well. Cost savings in manpower in all organizations. This is really to reduce, have automated lookups, have automated responses, have everything in there, and really reduce the amount of people time you really need to run the operations. And improve timeliness for scheduling of inspections and repairs. We want to make sure within that one, inspections and repairs can be easily scheduled, but equally important when I need to change my schedule, can you reschedule for me? And we end up deciding we won't even do a reschedule. We just want you to do another appointment and then cancel your old appointment. So those are the things we want to look at. Next one, Fred. Improve the efficiency for customer contact and overall experience regarding their schedule and repair needs. When you say efficiency in customer contact, frequently, they need a mobile app, and that hasn't happened before in the CIECA world. So this is the first time we're looking at touching out at that level. Improve the tracking of scheduled inspections, repairs, parts delivery, towing, and other services and products. Once I know when the repair facility is going to get a car in, then I can now start to order my parts. I can get the car rental agency out there. I can plan on all the repairs. So it's really the tracking of it, doesn't not just the schedule of that appointment per se, but everything else that surrounds it. Establish a base for future work in collision repair industries. We wanted to say, okay, here's what we have now for these companies that we've been involved in that we've got to participate. But we wanted to make sure that the PDR companies or paintless dent repair companies, that it applies to them as well. And we're starting to extend beyond, within CIECA, beyond just the sheet metal parts, but actually getting into the mechanical parts. And right now, so what we're looking at, we want to make sure that you're able to schedule a mechanical repair as well. We came up with workflows. This is just an example of one workflow. This is the repair scheduling. We have a workflow for glass. We have a workflow for rental. We have a workflow. This is the repair one, but we have one for estimating as well. So we wanted to make sure we understood exactly all the different workflows. Did we miss anything? and then you can consolidate once you really understand. But trying to develop one really was not working very well because everybody had a little quirk to it. So that's why we came up with it. I'm not going to read this one. I'm going just to show you an example of what we had. And so, Fred, go ahead to the next one. The messages that we came up with is the appointment availability inquiry. What do you have available? And then the response. One of the things we did is, so you know where we're at, is we're looking at real-time responses or synchronous responses. So if you know the BMS, it's the RQ message goes out and the RS message come back and say, here's the available appointments I have for you. And then your appointment ad request can say, okay, and here's the one I've selected. And then I can get back to give that ad response, either real time or otherwise the appointment confirmation message will go back to you. So those are the messages we have out there. The appointment reminder, how many times you get a call that says, remember you have an appointment tomorrow, if you're unable to make it, please call. It's just to make the operation work more efficiently and so you don't say, oh, I forgot. So that we wanted to make sure that was in here as well. That was actually one that was not covered in the workflow until we did the last one. So go ahead, Fred. The inspection report. Again, Glass needs to say, you know, is this people working at car washes and see you go through, hey, you got a ticket in your window, and they say, let's fix it. And they want to do an inspection to make sure it needs to be fixed before it gets fixed. Then you do the service report that says, okay, fix or replace that glass. And the service report can be for all of the entities we talked about so far. Then the reschedule. Again, we decided not to reschedule. You will go through and pick another appointment, and then you will do a cancel. So the reschedule remains on here kind of as a holding place to make sure we have it. It's not going to be a message, but we wanted to make sure that in the workflow we had a reschedule done so people looking at it don't turn around and say, you forgot about rescheduling. So that's why we left that in. So this was just as a placeholder here. And then the cancel request and the cancel confirmation. And then the inquiry request and then status report. Wanted to find out, I sent you an appointment ad request, and I haven't heard anything back from you. So we want to make sure that they have the ability to do inquiries for that prospective inquiry. And we also wanted the inquiry of, I didn't write down what my time was. Can you send that back to me again? It's when I'm scheduled to come in. So that's the inquiry request coming back. And then status reports when it's dealing with entities that are larger than a person. Go ahead, Fred, next. Scheduling functionality, which we talked about. Fred even introduced it, saying here's all the impacted parties. Glass inspection and glass repair scheduling. Vehicle damage estimate and vehicle damage repair scheduling. Towing scheduling, and that's to be from several different entities. For the towing, it can be for the carrier, it can be for the salvor, etc. And then rental scheduling. And again, these schedulings are interwoven. We started to draft some of the messages already. The appointment inquiry message and the appointment inquiry response. So we decided not to have a batch response, an asynchronous response to the inquiry request, but it's all going to be real time. We're doing the appointment inquiry request and response. We really don't have any right now asynchronous message for the appointment response. You know, coming back, I covered it earlier by saying it's a potential message, but we've had no business need for it out there. They're saying, no, we all want to do this all synchronously, all real time. So we have that sitting out there. Same with the cancellation. Again, here's my cancellation request, and send it back and say, okay, your appointment's been canceled. So the discussion around rescheduling was also, if a person doesn't want to cancel their appointment and then try to reschedule it with a different one, and next thing you know, well, that old appointment really did work better, so they go to reschedule the old one and it's no longer available. So that's why we went back and we made sure that there was a process for this. So before you hit, if you would in an application world, when you do that workflow, you'd have a mobile application say, I want to cancel my appointment. The first thing that would pop up, do you want to schedule another one first? So that's kind of the process we have in there. So of those drafted messages, we have the synchronous message responses that I just talked about in all those. Again, we're going to be developing more messages, but these are the first 6 that we have that we're actually developing implementation guides and Appendix C's for, so there'll be a business case example of each of them. In addition, there's going to be a business case example for each different line of business. Because as I said, rental has latitude and longitude, and none of the rest of them have it. So we want to go through and make sure we've identified the specific needs for that industry segment. So under that, the other thing we've started, this was started out of, Fred had mentioned it earlier about we really need to get into the JSON world. And so we are looking at doing this mobile device request and response using the JSON versus the XML. Both of them can have schemas, we understand that, but we're saying let's get into the JSON right now and let's pilot it. So this is being done as part of the scheduling committee, excuse me, as part of the scheduling committee, but it's also being done in conjunction with architecture. So we want to use as much as we can the BMS to create these JSON messages, and if they need to be different, at least use the same terminology, the same data dictionary, which is what the BMS is, that we currently have for all of our XML messaging. There's 2 other pilots going on as well with JSON. So that's going to be involved in when we go out there, is to say, here it's working. We're actually going to have 3 different types of JSON messages sitting out there, 3 different types of development, messages, 3 different types of development. One is going to be developing it in conjunction XML at the same time as we do JSON, and that's in scheduling. One's going to be where no message exists. That's going to be first notice of loss, because that'll be also touching the consumer. And the other one then is going to be the status message, which you saw as one of our earlier messages there, was what's the status of my appointment. So the status messages, and that's going to be taking an existing message where development has been stopped and putting that into JSON. So we're going after all 3 pilots with JSON. It's going to be very interesting. We have 3 different teams working on them. So we do have one person that's actually on all 3 different teams, so we do have some continuity there. And we're looking at going beyond CIECA to actually saying, there's a statement of other people have lived before you, so we want to go out and see what other people have done with JSON so we can learn from them. And one of those is an organization that we've dealt with, we've had a partnership with for a while, and that's STAR, which is basically the organizations where car manufacturers belong, OEMs. That's what we've had. Want to thank you for your time. I want them to join us as far as the JSON developing. Please let me know. We have the scheduling message itself. We meet Mondays at noon Eastern Standard Time. Happy to have your participation on that. Join us as far as the JSON meetings as well. Those occur more often, so if you're interested in any of those messages, please let me know. With that, I thank you for your time. Appreciate what we've got covering so far, and I'm looking forward to having the full, robust scheduling first 6 messages out there by the end of the year. Thank you, Fred.
Well, thank you, Charlie, and thank you, the audience, for participating. I want to let you know that within 24 hours, there'll be a copy of today's slides in PDF format and a link to the recording of this entire session on the CIECA website. You'll be able to get a link to it right from the home page. I'd like to, though, conclude this by summarizing our remaining educational events for the year. Certainly want to invite you to join us on September 9th through the 11th for our 5th annual implementation conference in beautiful sunny San Diego. If you haven't already registered, you just need to go to www.CIECAimplementationconference.com and it will take you right to the registration page. Also on October 8th, we'll have the next CIECAcast will be on vehicle repair status. And lastly for the year, on November 12th, there'll be a CIECAcast which will go through what's new in the 2013 R2 implementation. Again, I want to thank you very much for participating today, and everyone have a great day. Bye now.